The most common question I receive is how often should I train the glutes? I addressed that in yesterday's video. In today's video, I'm gonna address the second most common question that I receive, and that pertains to glute imbalances. You know, people write me, how do I fix a glute imbalance? So the first thing I wanna say about glute imbalances is that you should be a little bit imbalanced. Nobody's perfectly symmetrical. You know, if you talk about something, people become paranoid about it. This happens with butt wink in a squat, knee valgus, anterior pelvic tilt. You mention these things to people and all of a sudden they become so paranoid. And well, a lot of those things is bad, a little bit is fine. You don't need to worry about it. You know, it's normal for most people, say you're right-handed, right-footed, you'll kick your whole life with your right foot, so you plant off your left leg, kick with your right leg, so your left hip extensor tends to be a little bit stronger, and your right hip flexor tends to be a little bit stronger. So it's normal to have an imbalance of like 10% in strength. And in terms of size, look at bodybuilders, they're not perfectly symmetrical. The left bicep might be a little bit bigger than the right bicep. You'll see it with the pecs, delts, lats. You see it with glutes. You know, a 10% difference is nothing to be concerned about. That's normal. And think about it, it's functional too. Should professional baseball players be like, wait, I swung the bat 30 times, you know, on my right side, I should 30 times on my left side? No, they shouldn't. Should boxers take the opposite stance and practice striking? No, they shouldn't. And the same goes with golfers and tennis players, etc. You're gonna have a preferred side, and that's functional. You wanna be more coordinated, more skillful, stronger, and more powerful off one side because it's advantageous to do so. I mean, think about it, it makes you more functional. If you wasted time always trying to be symmetrical, you wouldn't get as good on the one side. I get a lot of people coming to me concerned about their glute imbalance. I can remember this one guy, he was very paranoid, and he swore he had a glute imbalance. You know, I gave him a battery of tests for like 20 minutes, and then I said to the guy, I said, listen, through every test that I know of, you came up symmetrical. You know, I had you do glute bridges, and I palpated, they feel the same size, they're the same density, they contract to the same degree of hardness. You know, I had him do goblet squats, he didn't shift to one side. He was very symmetrical with his bilateral movement patterns like squats and hinges and thrusts and bridges. And he was the same strength on single leg exercises like lunges, Bulgarian split squats. He didn't have a big strength discrepancy. So if it looks symmetrical, it feels symmetrical, and it performs symmetrical, there's not a problem. But he swore he could feel a difference, and I'm sure he could. You know, it's normal to get a better mind-muscle connection on one side than the other. But for the glutes, people get really paranoid. You know, I've never had anyone come to me and be like, I have a bicep imbalance, I have a tricep imbalance, I have a delt imbalance, I have a trap imbalance, I have a lat imbalance, I have an erector imbalance, I have a hamstring imbalance, I have a quad imbalance, I have a calf imbalance, I have an ab imbalance. It's just the glutes. And it's because people care about glutes so much. Now, on the flip side, I have trained a couple of clients with severe glute imbalances. One of them won the Miss Bikini Olympia. She was very crafty at posing to hide her imbalance. But one client in particular, she had a really big imbalance, and it was crazy because one glute was like over twice the size of the other, and then the opposite erector was over twice the size of the other. So she had this erector and this glute that was crazy muscular, and this diagonal pair that was atrophied. Now I'll get to the strategy I developed for her in a minute, but before I do that, let me go through the solutions that I've come up with as a trainer over the years. So the first method I came up with probably 10 years ago was what I call the 2-to-1 method. And with this method, you just perform twice the amount of volume for the weaker glute than you do for the stronger glute. And theoretically, the extra volume would help you converge over time. You know, you would have this discrepancy, and then over time, they would converge, and you would iron out that imbalance. You shouldn't strive for perfectly equal, just within 10% or so. Like, you want to bridge the gap a little bit sometimes. So while the 2-to-1 method worked decently well, I don't think it's aggressive enough, so I no longer do it. So the next method I came up with, and this is what I wrote about in Glute Lab, was the ankle weight single leg reverse hyper method. And basically you just do one-legged reverse hypers, slap an ankle weight on, and do them like 3 to 5 times a week. Do them before the workout while you're fresh for like 3 sets. And what's nice about this is you're doing it first thing in the workout, you're not fatigued, you're giving a good strengthening stimulus several times a week, and that should make a difference over time. But then you just do your normal workout, and in theory, things would even out over time. Now, the 2-to-1 method and the ankle weight single leg reverse hyper method were successful. I got a lot of emails over the years saying, thank you very much. You know, I stumbled across your article and it helped me fix my imbalance. But with some people, it's just not enough. You need something more aggressive. So with the client I mentioned earlier with the craziest imbalance I've ever seen, this led me to develop another method, and this is the single leg day method. So with her, I'd have her come 3 days a week. She'd do 1 bilateral day per week and 2 unilateral days per week, but on the unilateral day, she didn't train the stronger side, she just trained the weaker side. So in her case, I believe it was her right glute that was a lot bigger. I would just do a left-legged day. Now let's talk about exercise selection. What exercises are best for helping fix the imbalance? Automatically, I'm gonna exclude knee-dominant glute movements like Bulgarian split squats, step-ups, lunges, single-leg box squats, and pistols, and skater squats. Why? Because yes, they work the glute, but they also work the quad a lot. If you do a ton of these, then you're gonna develop a quad imbalance. The quad on the weaker glute, on the side of the weaker glute, is gonna get stronger than the other side, and you're not gonna be in symmetry. I'm also gonna exclude single leg, straight leg hip extension movements like the single legged RDL, the single leg 45-degree hyper, because same thing here with the hamstring. The hammy on the weaker glute side will now get stronger than the other side, and again, you won't be in symmetry. So where does that leave us? Well, my favorite is obviously the ankle weight single leg reverse hyper, but I also love the cable kickback. With single leg hip thrusts, you do feel the quad and the hamstring a little bit more than I'd like. You can do them with body weight, with a dumbbell, with a Smith machine, with a landmine. So lots of ways to do single leg reverse hypers. Also, in terms of abduction, I like the extra range sideline hip abduction. And finally, there's a cool thing I do with my glute loops. And basically, I have the client put the glute loop right above the knees. They stand against a wall or hold onto like a squat rack or something. And they basically do a 3-way kickback, meaning kick straight back, kick back at a 45-degree angle, kick to the side. So you're basically doing a mixture of hip extension, hip abduction, and then abduction. So you'll strengthen the whole entire glute. Now, how do you know if you have a glute imbalance? If you have a glute imbalance, that's gonna manifest itself with muscle growth. You'll see it. One glute will be markedly bigger than the other. Now, one glute might be significantly stronger than the other, and you'll know this because there'll be certain exercises like single leg hip thrusts where you're just way weaker on the one side compared to the other. And finally, if you feel one glute working way more than the other, you might want to devote some extra attention to that side that doesn't activate as well. That alone is not enough to warrant extreme measures like having a single leg day, as I explained before. So in conclusion, there's a lot of people that are borderline paranoid about having a glute imbalance. It's normal, it's functional. You're gonna have one glute that's a little bit stronger than the other, just based on your everyday life, and especially if you play sports. Sometimes you might not understand why there's this imbalance. It could be related to some other factor like, you know, an injury that never got rehabbed properly, and it could be some type of anatomical anomaly. You know, you see this crop up in the literature sometimes. Someone has like an extra muscle somewhere. In terms of strategies, you can try the 2-to-1 method, you can try the ankle weight single leg reverse hyper method, and you can try the single leg day method where you would perform like a bilateral day, like say squats, deadlifts, and hip thrusts on Wednesday, but then on Monday and Friday, you just do a single leg day consisting of exercises like single leg reverse hypers, kickbacks, single leg hip thrusts, extra range sideline hip abductions, and the 3-way band kickback I described earlier. Be sure to hit like if you found this useful. If you have any questions, please ask in the comment section, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel because I got a lot more to come. Thanks for watching. Now, if this video intrigued you and you would like to train under my system using my principles, then I invite you to click on the link below and subscribe to Booty by Brett and join the thousands of other happy members who are seeing amazing results.